The ancient secrets to escape the simulation. For centuries, mystics, philosophers, and sages have hinted at the idea that we are living in a simulated world. But what if I told you that these ancient secrets hold the key to breaking free from the confines of this artificial construct? Join me on a journey as we unravel the mysteries of the simulation. In ancient cultures around the world, our ancestors performed rituals and ceremonies to tap into hidden knowledge and transcend the illusion of our reality. From the Egyptians to the Mayans, these civilizations left behind clues that can guide us on our quest for liberation. The likelihood that we are living in base reality is 1,000,000,000 to 1. Elon Musk suggests that the entire world could be a science experiment conducted by a junior high school student in a different reality. Ray Kurzweil. The more you study the physics and philosophy of it, the closer you realize that the journey of spiritual awakening can be compared to playing a virtual reality game or simulation. This suggests that the singularity, when people transcend biology, is almost upon us. Rizwan Verka. The simulation hypothesis, a mind-bending theory that astonished the public in 2003, has emerged in the last 10 years. The Oxford University philosopher Nick Bostrom published an article titled, "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" Bostrom's paper took the simulation hypothesis from the extreme fringes of academia into the mainstream of public and scholarly conversation by presenting it within such a solid, philosophical, and probabilistic framework that it has had an impact on the field even now. The simulation hypothesis was not just introduced by Bostrom. Rather, he took it to a place where it was deemed a plausible, albeit debatable, scientific and philosophical option. According to the simulation hypothesis, reality as we know it may actually be nothing more than a highly developed digital simulation controlled by an unidentified higher intelligence. This idea is similar to the idea of virtual reality, VR, but virtual reality is far more sophisticated, and we end up living in a computer-simulated universe that we perceive as real. The idea that our perceived reality is actually an illusion is not new in either the Eastern or Western philosophical traditions. It has long been suggested in concepts like Plato's allegory of the cave and Hindu notions of the unreality of the world. However, the simulation hypothesis brings these philosophical and spiritual understandings into the realm of technological possibility. This idea has resonated with many serious thinkers. Some have even gone so far as to suggest that the odds that we are not in a simulation are 1,000,000,000 to 1. Regarding spiritual knowledge, what does it mean if we are in fact living in a simulation? Is it possible to awaken in a simulated universe? More importantly, do we need to redefine spiritual awakening for the digital age as the transcendence of simulated illusion? Enlightenment, awakening, and human consciousness. Could this actually align with the many spiritual traditions that view physical reality as an illusion? If you liked this movie about the potential for spiritual awakening in a virtual world created by computers, please visit Asangahum Books, our online bookstore, where you can find carefully curated book lists on this and other philosophical and spiritual topics. Many of the novels are available in digital and audiobook formats, in addition to hard copy and paperback. You will find the link for Sangohan Books in the description of this video. The concept of the world or reality being an elaborate illusion or simulation finds expression in both the Eastern and Western traditions. In the East, particularly within Hinduism and Buddhism, the concept of Maya is strikingly similar to in Hindu philosophy. Maya is the cosmic illusion in which the material world is considered as real, hiding the true unchanging reality of Brahman, the ultimate reality. Buddhism, which emphasizes the concept of sunyata, emptiness, and the illusory character of the material world, contains commonalities. Buddhist thinking claims that the phenomenal world is bereft of essential existence, similar to the artificial nature of a simulated environment. These Eastern philosophies encourage spiritual practices aimed at piercing through this illusion. Later in this video, we will examine more closely what exactly a practice aimed at transcending a computer-simulated reality might look like in Western thought. The works of classical philosophers like Plato and Descartes offer allegories and thought experiments that bear an uncanny resemblance to the simulation hypothesis. Plato's allegory of the cave, described in The Republic, describes prisoners who are shackled from birth in a cave and forced to face a wall. See the world outside the cave only through shadows projected on that wall. According to Plato's allegory, reality may not always match our impression of it. The simulated world in which we live is represented by the shadows on the wall, while the real world exists outside of our direct field of vision. René Descartes, a prominent figure in Western philosophy, challenged our uncritical acceptance of reality's veracity in his Meditations on First Philosophy. In order to arrive at knowledge that is impervious to doubt, Descartes first challenges everything that is subject to doubt. To this end, he proposed that we may readily question the veracity of the physical world because it could be the product of a formidable deceiver, such as a malevolent demon who has created an illusionary external world. Descartes' philosophical exercise of extreme doubt highlights the significance of not just accepting it, rather, it highlights the similarities with the simulation hypothesis that are evident in the digital age. Rather than a demon, it is an advanced civilization that has produced a sophisticated computer code that we now mistakenly experience as reality. By challenging its reality, we open the possibility of not only revealing its unreality, but also of discovering or realizing what is beyond its illusory nature. It led to his cogito ergo sum, or I think therefore I am, which is Descartes' conclusion that although everything else, including the world's reality, could be questioned, the existence of the thinking self was unquestionable and beyond question. He reasoned that even if our reality were simulated by a demon or an advanced civilization, for example, the consciousness experiencing that simulated reality must be real in and of itself. Similar to how the spiritual practice of self-inquiry operates, Cartesian doubt challenges the validity of the perceived world while also reaffirming the certainty and significance of individual consciousness within any given reality, whether it be simulated or not. However, the conclusions regarding the nature of the self, arrived at via the spiritual practice of self-inquiry, differ greatly from the conclusions reached by Descartes, who believed that the self was at its core. A reflective self. Compared to Descartes' thinking self, Advaita Vedanta, especially as taught by the renowned Indian guru Ramana Maharshi, suggests a far deeper, wider, and more expansive notion of the self. In a moment, we will examine Ramana's method of self-examination, but first, let's examine the precise state of individual consciousness in a simulated universe. According to certain simulation hypothesis variations, consciousness arises spontaneously from the simulation and is a byproduct of intricate algorithms and computational processes. This is in line with materialist perspectives in neuroscience and psychology, which hold that physical processes in the brain are the source of consciousness. The simulation hypothesis, however, offers an additional perspective by arguing that if our brains are included in the simulation, consciousness will then emerge as a second-order emergent property. So, in addition to being the epiphenomenon of neural activity, consciousness is also the underlying computer code that makes up the simulated universe. However, the question is, who or what created the code? Was consciousness something imported by whatever entity or process created the simulation? Or is consciousness a fundamental component of reality, simulated or not, that cannot be reduced to physical matter or code? It's clear that the simulation concept raises several important issues. Questions concerning the nature of reality. We want to know what is real. In other words, we're looking for that which is undeniable. In simulation terms, we're looking for base reality. Hinduism offers a fairly straightforward test for base reality. Base reality cannot change or end. It must be constant and eternal. Since base reality is always there, can we conclude that awareness is always present as well? What about our sense of existence? Some schools of Advaita Vedanta contend that our sense of self is fundamental, that it is our base reality. In many of these schools, they recommend meditation on the sense of self as a means of achieving spiritual awakening, which is awakening to what they suggest is the fundamental and irreducible nature of being itself. However, there are times when we are unconscious, so it seems unlikely, and certainly not if we are in a simulation and consciousness is a byproduct of computer code. From this vantage point, everything is finally settled as, according to this perspective, existence is the fundamental fact, since existence never ends. But is this accurate? The simulation hypothesis raises the possibility of doubting our sense of existence as real, but it also poses a hypothetical challenge to the idea that existence is neither coming nor going. It suggests that even our sense of existence and who we are may be nothing more than computer code. There are arguments and spiritual revelations in both Eastern and Western religion and philosophy that imply that being is not grounded in reality. So the simulation hypothesis is not the only argument against the idea that being is fundamental, that being is reality, and that being never comes or goes. Ramana Maharshi introduced the practice of self-inquiry to many of his students. This involved asking oneself the question, "Who am I?" The simplest way to understand the meaning of this question is to consider a remark from Ramanas. That which is outside of deep, dreamless sleep is unreal. Nisarga data makes it very clear that being is not base reality, because in his view our sense of existence and our very beingness come and go. In fact, Nisarga data stated that the sense of I am, or the sense of existing, is entirely dependent on the arising of the body-mind. This means that both the question of who am I and the state of deep, dreamless sleep point to the same unfathomable reality, a reality that exists before there is any arising at all. Nisargadatta Maharaj expresses something very similar when he suggests that one should meditate on the I am until realizing the I am illusory. How can any of this assist us in getting out of the simulation? If we are in fact living in a computer simulation, we already know that the only way to escape it is to look for and locate base reality, because only then will we be able to identify the simulation's origin, and only then will we be able to move on from it. If we accept that being is not based reality, it does not matter whether our consciousness or our sense of existence are products of computer code, because base reality is nothing at all. This is why the spiritual teachings of Ramana and Nisarga data hold true, regardless of whether we are inside computer simulations or not. When this understanding is fully grasped, it doesn't matter whether what appears to be a simulation or not. We have all we need to transcend the appearance of any world. Paradoxically, the gateway out is the primary illusion of I am. We ask, who am I? And we recognize ourselves as pure I amness, without addition. We rest in the primary illusion of our sense of existing. The simulation hypothesis even suggests that our very sense that we exist may be the result of computer code. Nothingness passes the reality test. It neither comes nor goes. Everything arises from nothingness and returns to nothingness. Nothingness is base reality. We acknowledge that our very sense of existence is illusory, and we recognize that our sense of existence is the root or primary illusion. This is because regardless of how the world appears, whether through simulation, dream, hallucination, or some other means, we must be there to experience it. Without the illusion of self-existence or being, the world does not exist, so we cling to the primary illusion of who we are until we start to intuit its source. We have a wordless, thoughtless, bodily recognition that non-being is the source of being. We acknowledge that our feeling of existence itself is an illusion, and that it is the fundamental illusion from which all other illusions spring. This is because we have to be present in order to perceive the world, no matter how it appears to us. Through a simulation, dream, hallucination, or any other method, we hold on to the primary illusion of our identity until we begin to intuit its source, because without the illusion of self-existence or being, the world does not exist. We recognize instinctively and mindlessly that non-being is the root of being. By investigating the nature of this I, resting in the primary illusion of I am, and intuitively grasping its source, we are able to directly experience an understanding of the vast open state of non-being. Spiritual awakening is a process that involves peeling away the layers of illusion. including the subtle illusion of existence itself. The realization that we are not limited to the confines of any reality, simulated or otherwise, but are inherently connected to an infinite formless source that transcends all concepts and categories is the essence of spiritual awakening. And the simulation hypothesis thus functions as a contemporary metaphor for an age-old spiritual truth that the reality we perceive is not the ultimate truth.